And we will go live in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to this week's EZIRA Hangout number 11 with your host Harrison McLean, where we talk all about the recent project updates for the EZIRA network. So let's jump right into it with our introduction for today, which answers the question, what is EZIRA? EZIRA is a protocol for blockchain social media with a decentralized exchange and a peer-to-peer marketplace. Users can make posts on boards, groups, or profiles and encrypt them to make them private. Businesses can create crypto assets to represent voting power and distribute revenue. Merchants can list products for sale and receive free and virtually instant payments from customers. Users earn rewards when they post valuable content, earn tips, and can charge micropayments to access premium content. Supernodes earn rewards by providing file storage through IPFS. The EZIRA protocol earns revenue by selling account membership, post promotion, and charging trading fees. Every EZIRA interface can choose which content to display and how to sort it. The protocol has no censorship. Users can choose which identity to use for posting, whether it be a full profile account, a persona account, or anonymously. EZIRA users and applications that create accounts for new users earn an ongoing share of the revenue from those users. So, today on the EZIRA Hangout agenda, we have the project updates up next. Then we have the exchange page release, which I'll take everybody through shortly. Then we'll have the EZIRA video and discussion about the EZIRA project updates after that. Then we'll have the discussion topics for this week. They're going to be quite interesting. There's been a few interesting things that have been happening in the crypto space recently that we'll get into. We'll be talking about the crowdfunding campaign and a guide for the weekly auction and the changes to the weekly auction that will be happening as of next week. We'll be discussing the business and application case in its finalized release state. That's now accessible on ezira.io/businesses. Lastly, we'll get into general discussion and questions and answers for anyone that has any questions to ask about the EZIRA project. So next up, we'll get into the project updates for this week. The EZIRA Exchange prototype is now live. The new prototype EZIRA Exchange offers a bitshares wallet and now shows the EZIRA asset by default. It includes open.steam as a base pair for all bitshares assets trading. That means every Steam user can now use their Steam that they earn from their Steam posts to trade directly for other assets on the bitshares decentralized exchange without having to go through other base pairs which may have less liquidity. You can now trade directly from Steam to other assets with Steam as a base pair. You can check it out at www.exchange.ezira.io. This makes it easier for everyone to make a bitshares wallet and access EZIRA without needing to type it in. Typing in the asset name in the Find Markets button was the leading cause of confusion amongst our users. That is now resolved because EZIRA is there by default. It also brings the EZIRA wallet interface onto an EZIRA domain where it is more secure against DNS hacks. The business and application case is now finalized and live as of a few minutes ago on www.ezira.io/businesses. This document describes all the founding businesses in the EZIRA consortium that will be created to bring value into the EZIRA ecosystem. So these range from content production businesses that create films, feature-length films, music albums, applications for use in an open source app store, through to financial services like decentralized fund management services, actively traded funds that people can put their EZIRA assets into and elect the traders that they choose to manage those funds on an active basis. There will also be verification businesses and computational service businesses. Computational service businesses act as a service-based ecosystem for accessing the EZIRA supernode network without requiring the user to hold a large base of EZIRA power or associated EZIRA resource assets. They can access it as a service for a fee instead of having to make the upfront capital investment. EZIRA verification businesses will enable applications to enforce regulatory guidelines on the users of those applications. So EZIRA is taking the regulatory framework and putting it as a second layer that can be optionally used by businesses. EZIRA cannot and will not and does not use any KYC, ATF, or CTF processes because it is a decentralized autonomous corporation and is not subject to the whims of any national governments. Those national governments may choose to enforce laws on some of the businesses that operate on the protocol, and those businesses will be free to adhere to those guidelines that will be made available from an easy service point on the EZIRA verification businesses. So those will include auditing services to ensure that transactions and documents to back up supply chain processes are in fact valid and true, which is a leading cause of concern with many supply chain startups that say they're going to put supply chain on the blockchain. A lot of them have absolutely no idea, believe me, I've talked to them, about how to make sure the data is actually accurate. They have no way of making it accurate because people can still lie on a blockchain, and what you'll end up with is immutable lies. We'll get into that later on. But the business and application case details which initial businesses will be created by the EZIRA team in association with industry partners and industry experts, and which ones will be available as franchisable businesses for EZIRA's early entrepreneurs. Next up, we have the EZIRA Weekly Auction changes. This week will be the final week before a minimum reserve price is introduced to the weekly auction. So the weekly auction as of next week will have a minimum clearing price of 50 cents bitUSD per unit. The amount of EZIRA distributed will be reduced if the price of clearing the auction is below 50 cents. So that means it will range between 50 cents and $1 depending on the amount raised. The 1 EZIRA faucet for registering a bitshares name on EZIRA.io will also be finalized, and all of the current registrars to that faucet will have their EZIRA sent out, and that will be finalized and closed. So does anyone have any thoughts or comments about the project updates this week? We've got a new exchange page. We've got the alpha from last week is on alpha.ezira.io. And we've got some changes to the auction that ensure that the price of EZIRA is able to maintain a stable level by being distributed at a higher price so that it can reach a better price point and begin returning value to the EZIRA fundraising campaign from the secondary market. So Emeka Collins asks, how do we join the EZIRA Alpha? It's a fantastic question. So to do that, you'll first need a Steam account because the Alpha will operate on the Steam blockchain until the EZIRA testnet blockchain is created and live. So it is at this time running on the Steam blockchain, and to get to that you go to https://alpha.ezira.io. That is based on a fork of busy.org, one of the better interfaces, alternative interfaces for accessing the Steam blockchain, and the perfect starting point for the EZIRA.io web client. So we'll be utilizing that as the prototype for integrating the EZIRA testnet blockchain and from there we'll be making modifications to incorporate all of the additional features that EZIRA brings to decentralized social media. The next feature that is currently being added in is the bitshares wallet and exchange interface is going to be included within the same application as the alpha. So the exchange page on exchange.ezira.io is only temporary until the bitshares exchange is integrated into the Busy application itself within the same URL. So that'll just be on the exchange button instead of needing to go to an entirely new page. That's next up on the development timeline. Moving on to the exchange release, which I'll just show everyone now. So this is what the exchange looks like at the moment. And this is exchange.ezira.io. Uses the light bitshares interface by default and shows the exchange page with a new selection of assets that is much more easy to manage for EZIRA users because it includes the EZIRA asset as a default asset selection. So here we have the trading page for EZIRA, and that is up to 95 cents at the moment. Is the most recent trading price. So the new EZIRA is distributed on these orders here, starting at $1 bitUSD, and between the current price and the $1 price point, which is the ask order of the EZIRA preliminary ICO, there is about 5,000 bitUSD of very cheap EZIRA remaining at about 95 to 99 cents. So they can easily be bought up by new participants to the EZIRA crowdfunding campaign, and they'll be able to get in at a price point that is slightly below the $1 amount at the moment, but there is only 5,000 bitUSD of those remaining at this time. Also, EZIRA is now liquid to all of these base pairs listed here, so there is now some more orders on the bitshares book. So the bitshares to EZIRA trading book has got an ask order there to sell some EZIRA to the bitshares trading pair. There's also one for Ethereum and Bitcoin, and now introducing, never before seen on an exchange, on a bitshares exchange rather, is the Steem base pair. So Steem can now be traded as a base pair for Bitcoin, for EOS, and for bitUSD and the like. So this makes everything easier for Steem users who now no longer need to directly sell their Steem for bitUSD. They can just simply go to the Steem to EZIRA base pair and make a purchase of EZIRA from that exchange, from that base pair there, with all of these orders here. So that's the new EZIRA bitshares wallet interface that makes everything slightly easier for everyone to use the bitshares blockchain. So we have Emeka Collins asking, if I post on alpha.ezira.io, will it show on my Steemit page? Yes, it will. It's a cross-posting platform, just like Busy. Yep, so it's a fork of the open source Busy platform, which means that all of your posts there go to the Steam blockchain, and those will be posted accordingly. You are correct, Emeka Collins. Busy does get, I thought the number was 10%, but it may be 15% of the payout. So EZIRA will be eliminating that post-beneficiary reward in a very short time frame. We will find that part of the code. I'm pretty sure it's 10. I think it's 10. And we'll be taking that part out so that the users of the EZIRA Alpha do not pay a cut of their post rewards to anyone. It should be an interface that everyone can use, and that's what it will be very soon. Okay, so moving on to the EZIRA video. So the EZIRA video is live on EZIRA.io. But before the EZIRA video, we might go to the business and application case, which has just been put up onto the main website. And it shows the business and application case PDF hosted here live. That is now finalized and released. And that details all of the details about decentralized autonomous corporations, the EZIRA consortium, the different types of businesses that will be able to be made, and all of the details surrounding the business models that are possible on the EZIRA blockchain. So all of these businesses, typically the majority of them make a return on investment from revenue coming into the business account, so 5% of the revenue and 20% of the calculated net profit are distributed to the asset holders of the business account. So that's how that works. So that's 5% of revenue plus 20% of net profit for the majority of the businesses. Goes to their crypto equity. And you can read the business and application case in full at www.ezira.io/businesses. And that's just a PDF there. You can either open it from the button or from the embedded document there. Moving on to the EZIRA video. So the EZIRA video is a very high-level overview of the types of things that will be made possible by the protocol, and an insight into some of the reasons why it is going to be made the way it is. And it's called EZIRA Build the Next World.
Starlight raining over me. We
So that's EZIRA Build the Next World. It's the lead video on EZIRA.io, and describes in very simple terms what EZIRA aims to achieve. And shows the human element that is often forgotten about in a lot of cryptocurrency communities. They try to, in many ways, remove the human element by making money in smart contracts completely trustless. But what they forget is that the end users are in fact people. And it's important to always bring back everything we do in cryptocurrency comes back to the people that use them. Because without the people using them, cryptocurrencies can't really do anything. It's not the technology that cryptocurrency is revolutionizing at the moment. It's the interactions between people. It's the ability to interact peer-to-peer without requiring a business in the middle. It's the ability to reconnect with people in a way that hasn't been done before in human history, because there's always been a large institution, a bank or a government or a lawyer or someone taking the humanity out of human interaction. But now we can decentralize those middlemen, the functions they do, so that people can once again interact on a peer-to-peer basis, whether it be selling a product through EZIRA or creating an asset and trading it and sending it. It always comes back to people, and that's where that video starts. With the EZIRA mindset of the community is the most important part of cryptocurrency. So we'll move on to the topics for this week. And this week's EZIRA topics for discussion are: what are the problems of online marketplaces? So by online marketplaces, I'm typically talking about two main online marketplaces, and those are Amazon and eBay. They're the two largest marketplaces, at least in the Western world. I think China has quite a few other ones. Alibaba comes to mind. But in the Western world, Amazon and eBay are generally the largest online marketplaces. And they have many inherent flaws. Because they're centralized businesses, their servers are vulnerable to being taken down, because they don't have crypto economic incentive for them to run at all times at all costs. They don't have the blockchain level of security for their payments. They use fiat currency payments exclusively. They don't use any immutable payment systems at the moment. They have product inventories that are closed source. You can't export those data points anywhere else. All of the data for who buys what is contained within a massive walled garden that is owned and controlled by those companies. And product purchasing data is some of the most valuable data that you can have as a business, because it allows you to target your message. It allows you to change your message to improve the way that you speak to customers, the way that you approach your product, the way that you appeal to different audiences. That information is very valuable to businesses, and these companies are able to control all of it behind their centralized servers. So they have the ability to analyze that data that no one but them gets access to, and they can then launch their own competing products. So Amazon's been doing a little bit of a thing where they analyze the products that their competitors are making, and then they use that information to launch their own products to undercut the people who are using their platform. So by making generic brands, they are having the same problems as large supermarket chains, whereby every high quality brand is replaced with a generic product made by the creator of the store, specifically for the purposes of undercutting a high quality product with a lower quality substitute. They identify products where people are willing to sacrifice quality for price and then directly go after the people who are supporting their own business by listing products on there in the first place. So the practice of consolidation of power from local marketplaces right up to supermarket chains and now international online conglomerates is contributing to the hyper commodification of every single consumer product, and the absolute force of cost reduction, squeezing the quality and squeezing the life out of everything because it is profitable to do so. So what the EZIRA peer-to-peer marketplace does to solve these problems is it allows trading to once again be peer-to-peer. So no company in the middle. That's what peer-to-peer means. One person to one person, or one business to one person. Not one business acting as the middleman for everybody, which is the way it is now. Not one business being everybody's mediator. On EZIRA, people will be able to choose their own mediators, and then eventually, when they can trust those businesses, those mediators will not be necessary in the long term. For the majority of products, you'll be able to have a level of trust in the businesses on EZIRA that will allow you to not need a mediator. They will be willing to ship the product to you, and then when you receive it, pay for it. For some of the businesses, obviously not all of them. But because of the strong identity that's inherent on the EZIRA blockchain and any blockchain, businesses may not even need mediators, is what the point I'm getting to here. When buyers and sellers can trust each other to the extent that they know that each person has an on-chain reputation that they need to protect, then you'll have scenarios where levels of trust are able to be made that other systems wouldn't enable. You can have the purchase of products that are so expensive that they normally require a legal team and a whole sort of layer of bureaucracy for making the transfers, like properties, like cars, things that are expensive that normally have a lot of fees involved in selling them. Those things can be traded again peer-to-peer on EZIRA with low to no fees. So if you need an EZIRA mediator, there's a fee, and if you don't, then there's no fee. It's that simple. So we remove the centralized business that has an incentive to compete with the other businesses, and we instead allow the EZIRA protocol to facilitate trade instead of consume the data and attack those who are trying to trade on it. So by putting transaction data on chain, it makes it a public repository for which individuals are transacting with which businesses. You'll be able to see where the transactions are going, but the details of those transactions will be encrypted and only readable by the accounts participating. So at the moment on Steam, the memos are open to the public. On bitshares, the memos are encrypted. You need a memo key to unlock them. But peer-to-peer trading transactions will be encrypted so that only the users that are doing the trading can read the contents of the trade. The mediators will be included also, unless there are no mediators. So each peer-to-peer trade will use an on-chain operation to specify what the object is and its trading price, and then people will be able to accept that trade and specify when they're selling it, that is, specify the pricing structure, whether it's a fixed price, whether it's an auction, whether it's a declining price, and they'll be able to manage their business by selling products on-chain without needing any company to manage their product database for them, because their database of products is public and open source. So when products are made that are on an on-chain database, what that means is that all marketplaces, every marketplace application, can link to that product inventory and enable trades between applications. So any interface that plugs into the EZIRA blockchain will be able to let users purchase products directly on-chain through the peer-to-peer marketplace with an interface that is replicated easily between applications, just like Steam posts are replicated between applications today. There'll be an application state for the product inventories of stores that is able to be ubiquitous and omnipresent across all of their applications without them needing to re-upload it across different stores. So that's how EZIRA solves those problems, by making a large array of competition instead of having the middleman be the competition to be feared. People will compete against each other as peer-to-peer businesses. So the next thing we'll get into is the importance of privacy on EZIRA. So this one's fairly straightforward. One of the major innovations in the EZIRA project over the Steam blockchain is its ability to have encrypted posts. So when you have encrypted posts, that's what enables friendship connections. That's what enables selective sharing. It's what enables exclusivity. It's what enables groups and private posts. So by having privacy, you enable people to share things that are selective in nature, that are only intended for their friends. So Steam won't be able to scale to the masses if every post has to be public and on-chain and immutable, because not everybody wants their posts to be public and on-chain and immutable. On Facebook, anything can be deleted and only your friends can see it. So you can post different things. You can post things that you only want to be seen by certain people. And that's one of the reasons why Steam needs to be improved in the way that EZIRA does. It also enables private transactions using EZIRA Stealth. So on Steam, all of the trades between users are inherently, again, public and on-chain. So there's no privacy in transactions. So any blockchain system, I think, going forward, is going to need some degree of transactional privacy. You need to maintain the fungibility of the coins. You need to maintain the ability for users to have plausible deniability about what they do on-chain, and the ability to selectively reveal their transactions to specific people with a key instead of revealing it to everybody. So that's the importance of privacy on EZIRA, and that's why many of the features have been done the way they are. And the last thing we'll talk about today is on the same sort of note, and it's the reason that Snapchat exists, and that is ephemeral content sharing. So we're going to start seeing the word ephemeral a lot more, I think, going forward, because ephemeral content is content that is designed to be deleted after it has been viewed. And that's a major change in the way that people interact. It enables people to interact much more naturally. in a way that other social media sites like Facebook and Instagram don't allow, because when you do something, it's recorded and it's always viewable again. So there's a cognitive barrier, a cognitive cost to thinking, should I do this? Will this be something that looks good? Whereas when content is ephemeral, there's no way to access old content. So it's a live in the moment, just do it mentality, where you can share anything because it doesn't matter, it's going to be deleted. And that is a major gap that Facebook is rapidly and frantically trying to plug. And it's the reason why Snapchat exists. So EZIRA will enable ephemeral content sharing by having the ability for users to selectively send their encrypted files to specific single supernodes for hosting it out of the IPFS network. So the majority of posts that are public and or permanent will be hosted on IPFS, but ephemeral content will be able to be stored on a single supernode of the uploading user's choice for a specified time period, after which they are required to delete it. Otherwise they lose their supernode rewards. So how it does that is it makes the IPFS file, sends it to the supernode using the regular IPFS process, but only replicates it to that one supernode, and does not allow it to be, it only sends it to its intended recipient rather, and it doesn't send it to any other supernode. So it rejects all incoming traffic requests for that file except from the intended individual. Then that file gets placed in a transaction on-chain that specifies that this file is to be deleted after a specified point in time, and that any supernode that is proven to be sharing that file after that specified time fails the supernode validity test and is kicked out of the supernode reward pool. So every supernode will have an incentive to ensure that they delete and do not share those files. And this allows ephemeral content to be trustless, because there's no way for anyone to be certain that Snapchat is actually deleting the pictures that we believe are being deleted. They could potentially be storing the whole lot. They may not be, they're probably not. But the potential lies that because they're a centralized service with a closed source architecture, there's no proof that those files are actually being deleted. On EZIRA, there will be guaranteed cryptographic proof that a file is no longer accessible on the IPFS network, because all of the supernodes that were previously hosting it are required to delete it. Otherwise, they will suffer the penalty of being kicked out of supernode rewards for 24 hours, which could mean a massive loss of money for the operators of these networks. So that's how EZIRA is going to do trustless and decentralized ephemeral content sharing. So that will likely have technical difficulties and complications that are unforeseen, because that's never been done before. That'll be something that EZIRA truly pioneers: decentralized ephemeral content. That's somewhere that EZIRA will strive to innovate, to allow people to express themselves in the moment the same way they might do on a centralized service like Snapchat, but in a way that does not require trusting a central third party to actually delete the files. So that'll be coming out in the next edition of the EZIRA Whitepaper. I'll discuss that a bit more in depth in the EZIRA Whitepaper. But for now, we'll go on to the next topic after any questions that anyone has. Does anyone have any questions about the subjects that we just talked about? So ephemeral content sharing, the problems with online marketplaces, the way EZIRA solves those problems, all the topics we just talked about. Does anyone have any questions or comments about any of those things? In that case, we'll move on to the next part of the Hangout, which is the crowdfunding and auction guide. So the crowdfunding and auction guide will tell new users how they can contribute to the EZIRA crowdfunding campaign. So how people can contribute to the EZIRA crowdfunding campaign is by going to the new URL, which is exchange.ezira.io, and firstly making an account. If you don't already have an account, you can make one here. And then what you'll need to do is either buy some bitshares from an exchange of your choice, or you can deposit any of these cryptocurrencies, including Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Steam, to the Open Ledger Asset Gateway, where you can use those to buy EZIRA directly, or you can deposit bitshares from an exchange and buy bitUSD for bitshares. And from there you can use that bitUSD by buying some from here to purchase some EZIRA from the trading pair, which is on exchange.ezira.io market EZIRA_USD. So this site will be linked in the EZIRA crowdfunding page on the EZIRA website, so people can see how to contribute there. We have the EZIRA asset at almost an all-time high price. It went up to 97 cents. It's now at about 95 cents. So the asset is doing quite strong. People are finally holding on to their EZIRA instead of selling it on the secondary market. And we're looking to definitely break that $1 price point very soon. So then we can get on with the next phase of the preliminary ICO, which is the continuation of raising development funds. You can also purchase EZIRA directly with bitshares using the bitshares trading pair by making an order, and I'll do one for illustrative purposes. You can use your bitshares to buy EZIRA at, for example, 4.7 bitshares per EZIRA, and if you were to buy 23 of them, you then put in your wallet password and confirm the order, and there it goes. So it's very simple. Transaction confirms in 3 seconds. There's no waiting for your transaction to go through an ERC20 contract. There's no worrying about gas fees. There's no worrying about the gas price. There's no worrying about CryptoKitties clogging the blockchain, because we're on the bitshares blockchain with transaction throughput, a decentralized exchange, and smart coins. Highly underutilized and highly underrated blockchain. One of the best, if not the best, in the world. Steam and bitshares, the two graphene twins, soon to be joined by the recently launched EOS. So EOS has finally agreed to launch its mainnet blockchain, or at least the EOS mainnet launch group has confirmed with a go vote, and they will very soon be releasing their chain for public review and voting. And shortly after that, I will be voting for the block producers that I feel are going to make a positive impact to the EOS ecosystem. And I hope that all the other holders of EZIRA and EOS will take part in the launch of the EOS blockchain, which is a fantastic innovation in delegated proof of stake technology. So moving on from that, we'll go to this week's weekly auction slide. So the EZIRA Weekly Auction is 5,000 EZIRA distributed between bidders to the EZIRA address each week. The auction closes after each EZIRA Hangout. You can purchase EZIRA below its current market price by sending bitshares or bitUSD to EZIRA on bitshares. This week's current highest bidder is Java Point 1 with 2,758 BitShares. Thank you, Java Point. And this week's auction is doing fantastically. We've had a lot of bids from quite a few people. So we're seeing some significant community involvement here. And we'll be distributing the EZIRA after the Hangout, so there's still plenty of time for everyone to get their bids in and get their EZIRA at one of the lowest prices that it's going to be coming out of these weekly auctions. It only gets higher from here. When we have institutional funds looking at the project, considering bringing in upwards of $100,000 in many cases, just looking for the next level of demonstration of audience, the EZIRA price will not stay at its current level for very long, in my view. So moving on to the next part of the Hangout, which is going to be the business and application case finalized release. So I went over that a bit before, so we'll move along to the general discussion. So this week's general discussion, does anyone have any questions or topics that they want to bring up about the EZIRA project that they have on their minds at the moment? So I'll answer all the questions that you guys might have, and if your mics aren't quite up to it, you can definitely type them as well. Okay, so we have Samest with what is the difference in use of wallet.bitshares and exchange.ezira during the crowdfunding process? So the answer is there are not many differences. You are still using the same BitShares wallet. The main difference is that now EZIRA is shown by default in the asset trading pair list, so that people no longer have to search for it. And it also has a base pair of open.steam, so people can trade directly with their Steam for other BitShares currencies. It also uses the light theme by default, so it's a little bit more aesthetically reasonable than the previous iteration of the wallet. But other than that, it still uses the same BitShares chain. And that's correct. Steam is a straight deposit now. You can deposit Steam into open.steam, which is OpenLedger's version of Steam, and you can purchase EZIRA directly with Steam, and you can also purchase any other BitShares asset directly with Steam as a base pair, so it's priced in Steam. So for example, at the moment EZIRA is being sold for 0.42 Steam, so the price is in Steam. Thank you, Samest. It also importantly makes it easier. It removes one of the barriers to entry for new users by putting EZIRA directly on the asset list by default, instead of having them to requiring them to type it in, because no other exchange that people use requires you to actually search for the asset name. So it's a bit unintuitive to people who are new to BitShares and people who haven't used a decentralized exchange before. The thought and the idea of them typing in an asset to have to put it into the list is just foreign gobbledygook to a lot of people who have never used BitShares before. It's an inherent part of the chain though, because there's so many assets, there's no way to actually put them all on the chain, and it would be ridiculous to try and put hundreds and hundreds of different assets on the default list. So that's why the UI is open source. So every application that needs to use the BitShares blockchain can choose its own default assets, and EZIRA has done just that. So does anyone have any other questions, comments, concerns, bits of information that they've found recently that they thought was interesting? Anyone got any topics they want to bring up before I discuss some more EZIRA direction? Is there any fee on EZIRA exchange? Okay, so what there is no market fee on the EZIRA asset. So the EZIRA asset has no trading fees. However, every trade on the bitshares exchange does have a small fee in bitshares. That is paid to the blockchain, not to EZIRA. So the EZIRA exchange does not earn any of its own fees. It does pay fees to the bitshares blockchain, as does every bitshares exchange interface, that is. Some assets choose to put a market fee, like OpenLedger's assets have a market fee, which does earn the creator of the asset a fee. EZIRA's asset does not have that. Does anyone have any other questions before we wrap up the Hangout for this week? In that case, I'd like to thank everyone for coming to this week's EZIRA Hangout, where we have discussed the new exchange wallet page, the new changes to the EZIRA Weekly Auction. Will be raising the minimum price to 50 cents. You can check out the EZIRA prototype at alpha.ezira.io. You can check out the new exchange page at exchange.ezira.io. Those are two new prototypes to show some of the possibility for the EZIRA blockchain once we switch those interfaces over to using the EZIRA testnet chain. That will be the initial interfaces that we use, but they will eventually have a different blockchain underneath them. That will be a new chain with the new EZIRA technology within it, the new transaction operations and the like. So that change to the new EZIRA testnet chain will be publicly announced before it happens, and that will be after the completion of the EZIRA preliminary ICO, or when development is complete on those chains, whichever comes first. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I'd like to thank our Diamond EZIRAns, Dow Street, Meta, BitShares 2010, and a few other names. Thank you all for your ongoing support of the EZIRA project. Without your contributions to the EZIRA asset, this project would not be possible. And I'd like to thank all of the developers for the EZIRA team who have been making some great progress over the last few days and weeks. And it's time to build the next world. Thank you.